If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Welcome back to the Spidey Cast. It's been 2 weeks. At least it hasn't been 3. Getting a little more consistent. If you're listening from Gaming Dudes Podcast, welcome. This is a more quiet, retrospective show. There's not as much jokes being thrown around. And it's just a chat between you and me. Just a casual chat. Allow me to take you back in time to the year 2007. I was about 9 years old at the time. A little movie known as Spider-Man 3 just came out in that year, and I absolutely loved it when I saw it in theaters, which I probably talked about in episode 1, but if we're going to set the scene for this, I gotta get all the full details of what was going on around that year. Heck, I even enjoyed the B-movie. Yes, I think it's a fun animated movie. No, I was not in on the meme for many years, so... And personally, I don't really care about the memes associated with that movie. I think it's just a fun movie to watch. I don't see where the memes come from, other than do you like jazz? But minus that, I think it's not really meme worthy. Also watched Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea and Pokemon Lucario and the Mystery of Mew, 2 phenomenal animated Pokemon movies. In my opinion, they are some of the best, if not the best. Watched the original 2, but that was a little before these came out. Story was great, animation was great, voice acting was great. Sorry, sub fans, I like 4Kids, shoot me. The Hoenn region was still going strong in the Pokemon anime, and I was watching it on either Cartoon Network or Kids WB. Yes, kids, we watched these on actual TV stations. We didn't just watch them on streaming services like you do. We don't have infinite amount of choices, which makes it more impossible to choose what you want to watch. You had to live with the fact that you picked one network, mostly because it was economically the best way to do things. And if you didn't have the other ones, you weren't watching any of the other shows. You weren't just buying a second one and being like, oh, I want to watch MTV or whatever. You just bought one network. You didn't buy another one. You had to live with the programs you got on that network. And if you missed a certain episode, if you didn't record it, it could be lost in the ether forever. So it's not as extreme as the era my parents lived in, where you couldn't record things and you had to wait a year just to see something. But I will say that it's still way less convenient, and I miss the inconvenience, to be honest. It made things special. It made these shows an actual event when you watched them. SpongeBob was still going strong. Old SpongeBob fans were complaining about the fact that we had new seasons like season 4, which I love season 4 and beyond, at least until you get to season 11. That's when SpongeBob starts getting bad, in my opinion. 5 to 10, still pretty dang good. But there was one thing that caught my eye more than any of that. Video games. I was starting to actually become a gamer in those days. Now, the very first COD game that I actually played to completion was COD 2. I don't know if it was on the release date or a couple years after, but I played it to completion. I think before COD 4, but I don't remember fully. I was also a big Halo boy. I'm pretty sure I beat at least Halo 1, 2, and 3's campaigns at the time. Forgot Halo 3 came out, but I feel like Halo deserves its own episode in the future. COD 4 was better than Halo. Every single Halo game for me. Every single one combined. The story, the characters, the atmosphere, the campaign was phenomenal, and the multiplayer will never be topped for me in terms of the COD series or any FPS's multiplayer. But we're here to talk about the campaigns. So what makes these old CODs so special, you may ask, if you've never played them? Well, we're going to get into that. I think the first thing to point out is the grittiness of the visuals for each game. We're talking CODs 1 to 4 and Black Ops 1. The later parts of the series start to get a bit more colorful and futuristic, and I was never a fan of that. A lot of the levels were dark gray or brownish. Kind of like most of the games of that era, they were trying to be more realistic and more serious and dark. Some levels even had red skies. But I think one of the best things about these games is that they had the ability to tell a story without banter. You didn't have fancy cinematic cutscenes where we see the characters walking around. It was either loading screens with dialogue in them describing the mission in a briefing style, or you saw the characters talking in-game. But we got to talk about All Gillied Up if we're talking about quietly telling a story. So Captain Price, iconic character and resident leader of his squad in the SAS, decides to tell a fireside story to the rest of his squad about his mission with Macmillan to assassinate the Russians' arms dealer Viktor Zakhaev. So our mission starts with us playing as Captain Price. He's crouched down in some bushes in the middle of an open field, concealed in a ghillie suit. We hear a disembodied voice on the radio, Macmillan, our mentor. So we assume that he's not around here. Maybe he's like a mission control kind of guy. But then we see a bush that's next to us stand up, proving to us that Macmillan is with us, in front of us, ghillied up and ready to snipe alongside us. And we had no clue at the beginning of the mission. And we are in Pripyat, Ukraine, Pripyat. So yes, the Chernobyl incident has happened. We're in 1996, and the place is as dead as a ghost town. You also have radiation all over the place that you have to avoid. So I assume they kept a Geiger counter at the ready for the mission, or else they'd be dead. Now, since this is a stealth mission, you and Macmillan have to be in perfect sync. You're prone, going through the bushes, trying to find a good sniping spot to take out guards that are ahead of you. So what you got to do is wait for his call and then snipe when he tells you to. And if you don't, guess what? You're getting spotted. Sometimes people have found ways to get around this, but it's a lot funner when you follow Macmillan's orders. Though this mission's a lot less linear than the other ones, there are times when Macmillan basically gives you the option to take out a house full of guys or go past them. And it's possible. I've done it before, but it's very difficult, especially on veteran. And then you have a church tower you have to snipe a guy out of, and then you got to snipe the guys around him. The only lines Macmillan is saying is basically tactical chatter. There are a couple one-liners throughout the mission, but it's not entirely that. I feel like New COD doesn't take itself seriously at all and just makes everything a joke, constantly throwing in a joke or a quip. But I prefer it this way, where we can quietly take guys out and we're doing tactical talk. We're not doing any other bullcrap like that. Once we go past an archway away from the church, we see a bunch of vehicles and guys approach our position. So we have to stay prone while they're walking over us so they can't see us. So imagine you're crouched down as guys are walking over you, thinking you're bushes. And you have to wait, and sometimes you got to walk around, but you got to very strategically maneuver around these guys to get to these trucks. And if you fail, you're spotted and you're dead. But if you succeed, you and Macmillan crouch under the trucks and sneak under them. If this were any other modern COD game, the characters would be bantering around like crazy in a whispery, really cool guy, tough guy voice, making quips and stuff. And it's like, that doesn't fit the situation. You're in a tense situation where you could die. Joking is the least of the things you got to worry about. You got to pay attention to the tense situation and get out alive. It's serious. Past this area, you get to a point where there's a little pond in the middle and a bunch of vehicles around where you can have cover. And all you got to do is take out the guys who are dumping the bodies of their own soldiers into the pond. And you have to do it at the same time as Macmillan. You have to pick the guy and then he'll take out the other guy. It's really cool and advanced for the time. At least the AI is. That part's a little before the truck segment, so I skipped a bit. My memory's a little foggy. It's been a while since I've played the mission to its full completion. So once you reach the dead end of the line of trucks, which would have happened anyway at some point, you have no cover. So you and Macmillan basically have to run through the field before anyone notices and then make it to this other side of this city section. You kill a sniper from a fire escape and make it into this building. It's abandoned, dilapidated, ruined. The atmosphere is phenomenal. As you go through the city, you can hear the horrifying ambiance of kids playing in the playground, even though it's desolate. And you make it under this archway area in the middle of the city, and you see a rabid dog. And Macmillan tells you to leave him alone as he's chewing on the corpse of a Russian soldier. And if you bug him, the whole pack comes and you're instantly killed. So you got to sneak past him and not agitate the dog. Then you go through this large, dilapidated building that has a bunch of windows peering out to what looks like an airfield, I think. Macmillan comments about how 50,000 people used to live here and now it's a ghost town, as that ambiance I talked about is playing in the background, and it sets the tone of the scene perfectly. Same with the music. Absolutely perfect. Infinity Ward, you knew what you were doing back in the day. 50,000 people did used to live here, and a nuclear disaster emptied it completely of all life. What a mission. Then we move on to one shot, one kill. So time passes. We skip ahead to Price and Macmillan staking out an area, waiting for Zakhaev in this high-rise hotel at the top floor. They got their binoculars and a Barrett 50 cal, and they're watching as Zakhaev and his crew pull up in a bunch of trucks to start the arms deal. You actually have to take into account the wind and the direction of the flag to actually shoot Zakhaev. You have to use the Coriolis effect. And I'm pretty sure it's not scientifically accurate. People will constantly say it, so commenters, if you want to correct me, that's okay. You can if you want, but I know it's not accurate. I have not studied the Coriolis effect, but I have heard people talk about it. But I think it's really cool. You have to take into account the bullet drop and the wind direction to actually hit the guy. So you hit him and his arm flies off. And then you got to get the heck out of there. You think he's dead. He's actually the main villain of the series, spoiler alert, or more correctly, the main villain of this game. And I'd say of the entire series. I mean, he basically made the terrorist group that tries to get revenge on you in the other games. A high-end helicopter pulls up in front of your window and discovers where you're at, and you have to shoot it down with the Barrett and then rappel down. And then as explosions are going off in this apartment, you have to rappel down the side of this hotel, apartment, whatever, and then you get to the bottom and you have to run through all these enemies and take them out. Stealth is basically done for. You can't sneak around these guys. You have to fight them head on. Running through the exact same buildings you went through before, you essentially have to get all the way to the extraction point and escape with Macmillan and yourselves alive from this massive army. As you're going through these interiors, they send dogs that try to tackle you. They send in a bunch of guys with AK-47s. And then at some point, Macmillan breaks his leg because he shoots down a helicopter, and as it's going down, one of the blades hits his leg and cripples him. As a man, and even when I was a kid at the time, when I saw this scene, I was really sad. Like, really sad. The guy can never walk again. He is permanently a cripple, and he may be dead for all you know. But thankfully, you hear some dialogue from him. Even though it's really sad to hear him struggling, you basically have to carry him all the way to the extraction point. But he shoots for you. He basically has aimbot. It's the coolest thing ever. He's like, oh, I'm still a sniper. Leg's broken, but I'm still a sniper, and I'll still back you up. Just put me down. And he basically functions as a turret in this level. So you make it to this opening. It's like a giant clearing with some buildings around it where you have a giant Ferris wheel that basically functions as the most iconic set piece of the level. And then a bunch of enemies are starting to come in. They're starting to converge on your position. So you have to put Macmillan somewhere as like a turret and then plant claymores around. It's amazing gameplay. So you wait for the guys to show up. You kill them all. You get Macmillan in the helicopter and you narrowly escape. And that's how Captain Price went from Lieutenant Price to Captain. And Macmillan survived. Absolute legend of a character. Every single SAS mission in this game is phenomenal. If you kids enjoy clean house, all the SAS missions are basically clean house, especially the Blackout. That's a phenomenal mission. Let's start with Crew Expendable. So after your training segment, I'm not going to say the word because it's inappropriate, of the tutorial mission. I'm just going to refer to it as the tutorial mission. I don't like swearing on these shows, but I will say Crew Expendable, You basically have to go on this cargo ship. This is before the whole flashback stuff. It's way before. It's in Act 1. There's basically 3 acts in the campaign. We're talking a little bit about Act 1. We're not going to talk about it all. Maybe I could do a review of this on one episode, but we'll see. At some point I will down in the future. But crew expendable. You got a cargo ship that you got to go find the package on. Basically some documents containing information that incriminates this terrorist organization and Russia. So Soap is your main character, and he is a phenomenal character in the original series. He doesn't talk in this game, but in MW2 and 3 he does, and he's a great character. In the reboot, he's an idiot. But he's your main character, essentially. And you got Gaz as the wisecracking sidekick guy to Captain Price. He's like the major domo or number 1 flunky. And he's a great character. So you and your squad drop down from this helicopter that you're going in on this rainy, stormy night onto this freaking cruise ship. And you rappel down onto the first deck, and then you shoot up all the guys through the windows and take them all out. And basically, as a unit, tactically go from hallway to hallway, checking corners and any unseen places that enemies can ambush from, and you're tactically taking out every single person on the ship. And then a helicopter goes to this upper deck that you can't shoot the enemies from, and then just takes them out for you and flies up. All this stuff is so cool. So you get to a locked door, basically, and then Gaz, the resident wisecracker, who can still be serious from time to time. See, that's what's nice about this. Characters can actually be serious. But he whoops out a shotgun, shoots the door, kicks it open, and says, "I like to keep this for close encounters." But it's a cool line nonetheless. So you go down, check your corners, shoot all the guys through each of the hallways, get to an opening area with a bunch of shipping containers in this boat, kill some guys in the room, move to the next one, surgically take out guys in the next room, and then finally you make it to this area where you finally find the package in a shipping container that's open with a Russian emblem and a terrorist ultranationalist emblem, incriminating the two about the fact that they have a joint op together and are trying to destroy America and England. Then we have the blackout. We basically have to find this Russian loyalist informant who's trapped in the middle of a swamp. And we have to save him because he has information on al-Assad and other plans that these ultranationalists are basically making. That's what they're called. So we go through the swamp with our M4 and our sniper rifle, and then we take out these patrols stealthily, one by one, until we reach a house where we go through and we meet Kamarov, leader of the Russian loyalists, a faction of Russians who don't agree with the ultranationalists and are breaking off because they want to free their country. Then you provide sniper support for him on this hill, taking out a bunch of men who are attacking his men and turning the tide of the battle. You continue doing sniper support until Gaz gets sick of it, threatens Kamarov and asks where the informant is, and then he tells them, terrified of what Gaz would do to him. And it's an amazing scene. Play the game, seriously. If you haven't played COD 4, even if you're a new COD kid, play COD 4. It is a phenomenal game. Not just the multiplayer, play the campaign. That's what you need to play. Fighting through a small Russian town, our boys finally get to the building where Nikolai, our informant, is being held. Gaz cuts the power to the building and we sneak in, clean house style, and take out every single person surgically until we make it to Nikolai. Then we get to the LZ and extract him out of there. Or so we think. In the next mission, we get shot down. Then we have to go prone and sneak through the fields to escape detection from spotlight-equipped helicopters. We fight our way through a small backwoods podunk country village with a bunch of barns and farmhouses until we make it to an old man who can optionally be saved if you're quick enough and if you're stealthy enough, and you kill the enemy squad and then the farmer runs away. It's a pretty cool moment. See, even though these COD campaigns are linear, which I absolutely love, and they're heavily scripted, there are moments where you can screw up something and they don't allow you to restart the checkpoint. Then we get to this mission where you're shooting a bunch of guys with a ton of weapons on an AC-130. You're shooting massive, giant, explosive projectiles, and you're shooting rapid-fire bullets at them. It's amazing. And then Price and the squad are able to escape once you've cleared out the entire village of these guys. While I do like the nuke mission and all the Marine missions, they're not nearly as good as the SAS missions. I'm much more of a fan of tactical scripts and not just a bunch of crazy all-out war, everyone shooting you from all different directions scripting. COD 2 had a different feel. It was more war-esque. A lot of times there wasn't many stealth missions, which makes sense in context because back in the day you didn't have ghillie suits or any of those fancy things. Maybe. I could be wrong though. The Russian campaign was hilarious. It basically shows you how the soldiers were actually treated by the Russian fascist nation or communist nation, whatever you want to call it. Basically, one of the guys says, "These are potatoes," because he's throwing potatoes for like training, you know, and he's like, "Oh, why aren't we using real grenades?" to his commissar, his leader. And he says, "The grenades are more valuable than you are." Such an iconic line. I think Hill 400 was one of my favorite missions in the entire game, other than Red Army Training. But Red Army Training is hilarious. You get to see the conditions, like the cold conditions these guys had to go through, and how freaking unforgiving the winter weather was. And you're training with your Russian men, getting prepared for war. Your new recruits just pulled up in a truck, basically fresh meat. And you're going out there fighting Germans and trying to clear the area, planting explosives, blowing up tanks, sneaking through buildings as German propaganda is playing all throughout the city, sniping dudes with your Mosin Nagant with a scope attached to it, and running through the streets. And the music that plays every time you get a victory, like you get to the end of the mission in this game, is phenomenal. Just like COD 4, incredible soundtrack. You have a D-Day mission, which absolutely accurately captures the horrors that these heroes had to go through. The American soldiers. Yes, I'm going to call them heroes. No, I'm not going to be woke and say they weren't. They are heroes. They died for us. Get over it, Snowflake. But anywho, you're going and you're watching as they're getting killed as you're going on these boats down to the D-Day like hill. And you're just getting shot up. You're watching as your comrades die in front of your face. And just before that, they're bantering like nothing's going on. One of them's seasick. He pukes, and they're making fun of him. And then you see them get killed right before your eyes. All your men are just dying in front of you, and there's nothing you can do. Some of them are on fire as they reach the beach. And then Sergeant Randall, great character, pulls you to the side, gets you up the hill, and then you fight the Germans on the top of the hill. Essentially, you have to destroy these artillery guns so the ships can come in and bomb the area, which you do successfully. And the music that plays, yet again, is amazing. But Hill 400, Hill freaking 400 is a phenomenal mission. You're essentially trapped in a bunker with a bunch of wounded Marines during the whole D-Day thing. And you have to survive the constant bombardments from the German ships, the Stukas as they call them. Every time a bombing starts, you have to run into the bunker, and when the bunkers hit, your character automatically goes prone, and he's basically in a state where he can't lift a weapon. He's injured for a second. You have to recover and then get back up. Get out there and shoot the giant German armies. You have to blow up the tanks, snipe the enemies, and get everything done and survive. And it's a tough mission. It's brutal. And by the end, you see those ships come in, those Allied ships, and it's such a refreshing thing to see in this freaking stressful mission, because you see those poor injured soldiers, and you're the only line of defense they have, you and a small sniper team. But then finally, the flyboys come in, they kill every single German there, they bomb them all, and you get to go home safely as you hear this amazing final music play. I should mention that the soundtrack's obviously very orchestral and very like cliche war movie music, and it's freaking amazing. I love it. And then there's a final Marine mission where you get to take control of this gunboat, I believe, and you're trying to get to land as German artillery's trying to hit you. And once you get to the beach, which is connected to this massive town, city type area, this is like the final battle of the American campaign, and it's hectic as you're trying to clear out this massive town with all these Germans in every single building. In every single street corner, you have to kill every single one of them. And when you finally get to the end of that mission and the music plays, it gets me extremely emotional because it's like these men went through absolute hell and they are coming out of this giant conflict and it's over. The war is over. They regroup with their commander. Your character gets a promotion from corporal to sergeant, and holy crap, it's amazing. Likewise with the British campaign, seeing Captain Price in World War II is still amazing. And that's where he first came from. People don't realize that Price was not a modern character. He was in the old World War II games, COD 1 and 2. He wasn't in COD 4 first. That wasn't his first appearance. Fighting through the deserts and rainy cities and trying to help wounded American soldiers. Hearing Captain Price banter around with McGregor, who's basically Gaz 1.0. He's the major domo to McGregor, and you're Sergeant John Davis. That's your character. And you're fighting with Captain Price and a squad of British soldiers against the Germans and their Tiger tanks. All these war-torn battlefields really sell the devastation that this war's done to all these cities in this game. It's phenomenal. Then we have COD 3, where every squad member in the American campaign is named and has voice acting and has a character. We've really moved on and moved up in the world with this game. Your character's name is Nichols in the American campaign, which people have memed to death. I don't think it's that weird. I'm sure there's actual people with the name Nichols, but you have Huxley. He's like a con man thief type character who is a little bit of a coward, but knows when to man up and take charge in the tough situations that are brought about with this war. He provides most of the comedy in the American campaign, but he's a likable enough character. Dixon is easily my favorite character in the entire game. He's the brave second-in-command soldier to McCullen. He's a very harsh guy, McCullen. He basically says, "You're no good to me dead." That's his motto, and then you'll probably all end up dead anyways. But Dixon basically sets himself apart from McCullen by being more compassionate, understanding, more like a natural leader who actually cares about his squad members, and he jokes around with Huxley a little bit. He's brave, he's daring, and he's willing to get the job done, and he's the rock that you lean on in troubled times. Then we have Guzzo. He's a coward, he's lame, he tries to run away from the fight, doesn't help his squad. His squad got entirely killed. He's a deserter in terms of his mentality. All he cares about is if he makes it out alive in this giant war, which I get it. I understand being scared, but I never had a soft spot for Guzzo. I honestly wish he bit the bullet in a heroic sacrifice. That would have redeemed his character for me. Dixon having to die, which, spoiler alert, he does die. I would have rather had Guzzo die in order to complete his arc and basically say, hey, he died not being a coward. McCullen, I already talked about him a little bit. He's the cruel, kind of funny that he's this cruel leader who's jaded by the war and understands that platoons get replaced over and over again. And he's kind of lost the ability to care about the situation and just wants to get the war done. He even goes through a little PTSD arc. It gets to him too much and he's unable to speak or give orders for an entire mission. But at the end, he pulls together, heroically sacrifices himself, and dies planting a bomb, which blows up some of the tanks that they were trying to get past. Then we got the best character in the game, not just Dixon, Guy Rubichild. I can't pronounce his name. He's in the Canadian campaign. He is absolutely hilarious. I love his accent. He treats World War II like it's this glorious thing. Like he's not afraid of the enemy. He's like, glory or a glorious death awaits. And he's basically brave in the face of any form of combat. He treats it like it's a game. And he's easily one of the best characters. He's enthusiastic. He's fun. He's entertaining. Every line from this guy is the absolute best. And I'm so glad they didn't kill him off or try to make him out as the bad guy. He's a brave, tough commander who's got like balls of steel. He's amazing. He's the Captain Price of this game. That's how cool he is. And he's from the Canadian campaign. And he's got no time for cowardice. He's not going to shoot you if you try to desert, but he is going to belittle you, just like he did with Leslie Barron. Basically, he's this radio operator guy who tries to run away from any sign of conflict. And he dies tragically trying to be a hero, which really completes his character arc. And like I said, Rubichild is the absolute best character in this game. Maybe better than Dixon, even though I like them both. But I highly recommend playing this game just for his dialogue and his character. He's brave, he's tough, he's supportive, he's compassionate, and he does not fear the Germans. That's the best part about him. Amazing character, 10 out of 10, love him. Even the British characters. Frickin' Keith, he hates French people, and he's absolutely hilarious. He's boisterous. They call him fat. You know, they make fun of him, his colleagues. All of them do. But he's also the slight comedy character. But he's tough. He also doesn't fear any of the Germans. But he learns to trust French people at the end of his arc, and it's all good. I really like it. And then you got the posh British major character who's cool under pressure and is a great leader in the British campaign. He gets captured. You got to save him. And I just love his voice actor. Very sly, very posh, very commanding, very authoritative. Great character. Major Ingram's his name. Didn't even have to Google it either. I just remembered it. See, the problem with modern COD is it treats every moment like you're in a movie. There's no character death. There's no gritty atmosphere. It's all realistic and boring and colorful, and there's no real atmosphere like the originals had. It doesn't have that dark, eerie feel to it, warlike feel. It's more like a Marvel movie, and that annoys me. Back in the day, COD used to take itself very, very seriously. Yes, there were over-the-top moments, but what was nice was everything was treated like it was war. It wasn't treated like a joke or an action movie or a popcorn flick. I very much prefer the way COD was back in the day. We were grounded in reality. Yes, there were over-the-top things, but they weren't nearly as much as these new COD games. They're just set-piece machines now. And I like set pieces, but the entire game can't be that. Take Captain Price. I like him in the reboot, and I like him in the original. I'd say the original Price is better personality-wise. He's a very ruthless, tough, intense, cool guy who's cool under pressure. He's got a posh British voice. He's stealthy. He's tough. He's gritty. He knows how war works and that you got to take the gloves off in order to fight the enemy. Smokes cigars. Looks cool doing it. He's like a father figure to his men and a mentor to Soap, the character you're playing as, who's really cool, who becomes a mentor to Roach, the second playable character. He's so cool. Soap is awesome. Soap's got that same attitude, but he's got like humor. He's got a little bit more humor and humanity and humility to him. And he's a little bit less intense. He's less vengeful. And he can joke around and be funny. But he also knows when to get serious. Same with Gaz. Gaz also banters around and snarks at his teammates. And his death is really emotional. But we're not just talking about COD 4. We'll talk a little bit more about the characters, but COD 4 will get its own separate podcast. Soap's got a mohawk. You know, he knows what Price is thinking. He's tough. He's a father to his men, too. He very much follows in the footsteps of Captain Price. and he kills every single main villain except for Makarov. He kills Shepard and he kills Zakhaev, and it's amazing. He throws a knife in Shepard's eye after a hand-to-hand fight with him before Price can be killed by him, and then he kills Zakhaev with a pistol that Price slides him when he's not looking. This guy's tough, and he's been through it all, and he deserves whatever medal that he gets. He's amazing. And he's probably, with Price, tied my favorite character in Modern Warfare history. Then we have Ghost. He's mysterious. He's got his little skull mask that hides his identity. He's tough as nails, just like Gaz. He's basically Gaz with a skull mask. He's got that tough personality, takes no crap from anyone, unless it's Price or any of his squad mates. He'll put you in your place if you give him crap, especially if you're an ally, but not a part of his squad. Then we have McMillan. He's tied with Soap and Price as one of my absolute favorite characters in the entire trilogy. And that's because he's Scottish, he's got a cool voice, he's cool under pressure, he's tough, just like everybody else, but he's got more jokes, like he goofs around a little bit. His accent, Scottish accent, amazing, love it. Every single line from him is literally the best part of Modern Warfare, probably the entire series. He's like a silent sniper, stone cold, but he tries to make light of the situation when he has to. And he's a great mentor to Price, teaching him the ropes of being a good squad leader and a good sniper. See, COD used to mean something. It used to be a game with depth, heart, and emotion. It used to be a drama, like a war drama, a Band of Brothers type thing where you see these squads struggle together. Some characters don't make it out. Some don't survive. Does it suck? Yeah, but it certainly beats the constant resurrection of characters and fake out deaths of the new series, of the reboot that's supposedly supposed to be a grittier reboot that's more intense and more realistic and has more dynamic situations. Yeah, sure. Like, I'd believe that. Realistically, the new trilogy is just a bunch of DEI. I'm sorry. 2019 is a good game, but I'm not going to lie. Half of it is DEI-ridden garbage. Race-swapping Gaz and having random female soldiers that are tough enough to outpace men and beat them up. It's like, in hand-to-hand combat? Like, what? I understand, like, with guns you can shoot people, but yeah, my opinion on female soldiers. If you want to know my controversial opinions on female soldiers, watch President Trump's new Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's video on female soldiers. You'll understand my opinion perfectly clear if you watch it. Captain Price is great, but Alex is okay. You know, he's decent in the first one, but him surviving an explosion, it's like, The fake out deaths are bad. Don't like the cringy Marvel movie dialogue. None of the heart and soul that was in these games is in any of these new CODs. Shepard's a completely different villain. He's just a pencil-pushing general. Oh, we have to make him realistic. It's like, what was cool about Shepard in the original Modern Warfare 2 is that he was a stereotype of a general. He's with his troops on the ground, and he's fighting like a man. He's not just a pencil pusher. Yes, that's what a real general is. No, I don't need that in a video game. Same with Makarov. He was a far better villain in Modern Warfare 3, the original Modern Warfare 3. I hate that I have to call it the original, but he's basically cold, calculating, ruthless. He'll kill anybody. He'll kill anybody to get what he wants. He'll destroy an entire country to get what he wants. He's ruthless, and he's got the arsenal to back it up and the army, and he's intimidating. He's deadly. His speeches, the way he talks, everything sells him as this big, tough villain. Like, he's cold, he's calculating, he knows what he's doing, he's a master planner. He's not just stupid. The new Makarov looks like Ben Shapiro for some reason. Why would you make a terrorist look like a Jewish man? I don't understand. That sends horrible messages. On top of that, his plans always fail in the new one. In the old one, he stages a terrorist attack, makes it look like America did it in this Russian airport, causing World War III. He kills Yuri, Soap, and Kamarov, 3 major characters, and gets away with it scot-free until the end of the game of Modern Warfare 3, where Price hangs him and then lights a cigarette as police sirens are heard in the background, ending the trilogy. So this was a shorter episode. I think it's going to prime you guys for when I start actually using my camera in these videos. These podcasts are going to have to be shorter. They just are, because if I'm going to do a video version of this podcast, I kind of need to get myself comfortable enough to talk for an hour while the camera's on me, and I've never done that, except maybe on Twitch. So I think we're going to actually move to video podcasts for this podcast. I'm going to start testing it out next week. God bless people. I miss old COD. Bring it back, please. Bring it back to the old days when campaigns were fun, didn't have DEI, and were about actual soldiers fighting in wars and having to survive the horrors and being brave and courageous. But anyways, later.